If you went to LA or Atlanta or New York or Houston or Dallas, like a few years ago, you'd see realtors are like heavy into videos, right? Like it's huge. And now it's just kind of becoming a thing here in Kentucky where it's like almost kind of like a norm, right?
Yeah.
So usually I look to those bigger cities to find out what's going to be the trend in the next coming years.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. My name is Landry Fields. Excited to be back this week. Today's guest we have on is Aaron Bradley, who is with Bluegrass Real Estate Media. So we're going to talk about all things related to, photography, videography, staging, and all those aspects of when it comes to real estate, either selling your house, or as far as flip properties, or trying to get a new tenant in, or promoting yourself in general. So we're kind of talking about all those things. So yeah, Aaron, welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely.
Excited to be here.
Yeah. So I've been seeing you around, obviously, social media a little bit for a lot of the good work you do on the photography, videography side, et cetera. And so especially, even for real estate, for selling, or from the aspect of, short-term rentals and different things like that. Obviously, that's a key thing that's so important to kind of put the best foot forward for your property, so people aren't turned off, or they're actually stay engaged and interested and so forth. So before we dive into that, though, give us a little background about yourself, who you are, and so forth.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Bradley. I'm from Frankfort, Kentucky, small town of Frankfort, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Went to Western for a couple of years. Was in political science. Wasn't really for me what I realized.
Yeah.
So I came back here to Lexington. Wanted to get in real estate.
Okay.
I was a leasing agent actually at Newtown Crossing. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So student apartments and everything.
Right.
And thought that, was a great entry level to getting into real estate and everything. I always wanted to be like a realtor, get my license. And then from there, I met Scott McIntosh and Chris Sheets.
Terrible people.
Yeah, dude. Awesome guys. Great guys. Yeah, I actually met them through Airbnb. I was just messaging host on Airbnb, trying to find more opportunities in real estate, kind of learn more about it.
Right.
Because I guess the end goal is really, to invest in it.
Yeah.
And ran across them. So started working with them at Revitalex.
Yep.
Helping manage their properties, helping out a little bit on acquisitions where I can. And then from there, I kind of saw the value of marketing your properties.
Yeah.
And how much that helps within leasing, and like you said, kind of getting the foot through the door. A property can be the best price. It can have a great location.
Yeah.
But the first impression's what matter, right?
100% first impression. So had you always been involved or had an interest in photography and videography prior to that? Or is that something that kind of came about as far as seeing the need there?
Yeah, so good question. Not really, man. I'd always gone skiing and stuff like that. Had a GoPro, so we always kind of put like little montages together of that. But that's really as much as I'd really dived into it other than that. Yeah.
Well, that's why I love today's world where you can, if you want to learn something, there's nothing holding anybody back from learning something. So, the whole point of this podcast being the fact that I wanted to learn about real estate, didn't know anything about real estate. And I was like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And, why this whole real estate podcast, like I said, exists to begin with. So, so you got into that, and like I said, you've kind of blown up pretty quickly as far as that goes with like the real estate side. So, talk to me about all the different services that you all offer at Bluegrass Real Estate Media.
Yeah, so we do photography. So what's really cool about what we do there is it's HDR.
Okay.
So it's for every one photos, there's actually 3 photos being taken.
Okay.
There's one that's super overexposed, super bright, and then we got one that's just a regular photo, basically.
Yep.
And then we got one that's really low exposure. And from there, I have editors who hand blend it through Photoshop. So you're really getting the best of all 3 worlds right there. It kind of looks more realistic to what we'd see with our eyes, in other words. Other than that, we do videos, 4K video, all that good stuff. We're really starting to branch into like branding as well for agents.
Okay.
I think it's super important that, you get your face out there, kind of like what you're doing with this podcast, you're your own brand, when people think of Nova Insurance, you want them to think of Landry Fields, Dawson Fields, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah. And, with my brand, I want people to think that's Aaron Bradley with Bluegrass Real Estate Media. And to help other agents do that as well, because, there's like 4,000 something agents here in Kentucky.
Is that how in the state?
Yeah, I think in the state, got gonna have to fact check me on that.
I mean, it sounds right. I mean, countless just in our area for sure. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can imagine that's the case.
And like, it's really like, how do you differentiate yourself? You know?
Yeah.
So we're getting into that a lot. I really encourage agents when I'm starting to do videos, like, hey, we should do one with you in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could make another one that's just like a listing
Yeah.
video. But we do, you know, cinematic listing videos where it's like more like, you know, peaceful, kind of a tour of the property in a video. And then we do, you know, like social media videos as well that are all vertical format. Great for like, you know, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then we offer Matterport virtual tours. Those are awesome. You ever seen
What is
those?
that?
So it's essentially, you ever taken like a 3D tour of a space where you can walk around in it?
Yeah, you kind of click the different hot spots kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm starting to kind of branch out into other businesses with that, you know, hospitality, gyms, stuff like that.
Okay.
But, you know, it really gives you the opportunity. If you look on Zillow, you know, Zillow offers their own 3D homes.
Yeah.
When people are looking to lease a house or to buy a house, it helps to be able to walk through it. Kind of helps realtors and people that are doing what I'm doing, leasing, bring in more warm leads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then other than that, we do like floor plans, and we're getting into reels for realtors too. So complete social media for realtors.
And then when you said floor plans, you mean like staging, you know, digital staging?
Oh,
so
yeah,
forth
yeah.
Like that?
So, yeah, we do a lot of like photo enhancements too. Like, you know, virtual staging being one of them. That helps so much. In a vacant listing, I always recommend virtual staging. You know, that way you could at least play on the imagination of the people that are going to buy or lease the property.
Sure.
You know, if their imagination isn't really strong, how they visualize a space kind of shows them the potential of what could be there.
Yeah, I imagine that has only increased from a cost analysis perspective of digitally staging a place so people see it before they walk into it, rather than having to actually go in and stage an entire house with actual furniture and stuff like that. I assume the cost difference there is night and day.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that sense, right? So, and especially over COVID, you know, COVID kind of ramped that aspect up. I feel like even more so. So that's been cool to see. As far as the properties and stuff like that, I mean, we talked about obviously the best part of putting your best foot forward right off the gate, making that best first impression. So what do you all kind of do as far as that, as far as recommendations when people are kind of listing maybe their flip properties or so forth? What do we need to have in mind as real estate investors, kind of maybe that you kind of advise or we wish people would know and have done ahead of time kind of scenario or anything like that as far as when it comes to those things?
So I actually have a sheet that I send out to my clients before the shoot. That's for the homeowners, the investor, you know, any party involved with the sale of the property. But essentially it goes through, you know, like decluttering is like the biggest thing, right? You need to deep clean as well. Like you need to be able to walk in a property and it like smell as good as it looks, right?
Yeah.
But decluttering's like huge. Like, you know, you walk in and if there's like 30 things on the kitchen counter, you know, Keurig, everything needs to go in a cabinet, needs to have its own home, right?
Yeah.
One thing I see a lot too is like, you know, loose wiring.
Loose wiring?
Yeah, loose wiring. Like, you know, like if a house is like vacant or like kind of new and you look where like a TV is going to be and there's just like a bundle of wires, you know, sitting there.
Right.
But, yeah, like that's kind of what the sheet goes over, just how to prepare and like prep the property. Kind of goes into like, you know, if you were to stage it, how would you want it to look and be perceived to others?
Is there a difference between that and obviously the other big part of real estate photos and stuff like that? If it's like an Airbnb short-term rental side of things, what's the difference there between what you all are doing a lot of times we're focusing on, or is it pretty similar?
So with Airbnbs, it's a little bit different. So, like usually these things are already staged. Like they like look just like amazing when you walk in. A lot of people have interior designers that come in and kind of like do the furniture, you know, have everything out. Really, it's just keeping those clean, right? Is all I would tell like a host before I came in and like took pictures.
Probably makes your job even easier if it's an Airbnb, right? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Because they obviously wanted to look that good to begin with, stuff like that. So that's cool. And then as far as the video side of things, you all do drone footage stuff depending on the property's size and so forth like that. I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, from the standpoint of just kind of where virtual reality and everything else is starting to come into play. I mean, is that really starting to kind of hit real estate much, where there's aspects of technology either coming that you may know of or something like that, where it would allow someone to, in essence, VR walk through the property type of a scenario in some facet or something like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. So like, I got a piece of advice not too long ago that, Lexington, just Kentucky in general, tends to be a little bit behind on like the newer trends.
Sure.
Like if you went to LA or Atlanta or New York or Houston or Dallas,
Yeah.
like a few years ago, you'd see realtors are like heavy in the videos, right? Like it's huge. And now it's just kind of becoming a thing here in Kentucky where it's like almost kind of like a norm, right?
Yeah.
So usually I look to those bigger cities to find out what's going to be the trend in the next coming years.
Yeah.
And one of them being VR, Matterport. So like the virtual tours that I do.
Yeah.
You can actually, you ever seen those like VR headsets?
Yeah,
You put
yeah.
your phone in and stuff.
Okay,
People
yeah.
are starting to like do that for Matterport. It actually has like a settings to where you could do VR and walk
Interesting.
through it. Yeah. Completely on your head.
Interesting. Is that what is there special types of cameras, I assume, that have to be involved for that kind of a thing, to take more like 360-degree type of
Yeah.
stuff? I don't know the technical aspects of that by any means, but I'm sure it's a bit different than your standard stuff, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head right there. It's 360 cameras. The really good ones too have like LiDAR. So they have like accurate measurements, stuff like that. Because Matterport has, for builders, it has a use too, and developers.
Yeah.
You can get CAD files, CAD scans, stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can go crazy in depth then.
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I haven't really dived too much into that. I've kind of stuck to like the residential side of
Sure.
it.
Sure.
Just helping buyers kind of walk through a home before they have to call an agent and come see it, right?
Right. Do you have any stories or success stories that kind of stick out in your mind, as far as maybe a property that was kind of struggling, but then they kind of, that we kind of started up the listing with coming in with some of your all services, and wish they would have done that maybe to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good question. Like, it's funny, this morning in our referral group with me and Dawson,
Yeah.
the realtor there with the brokerage, Sarah Zabawa, she had a listing not too long ago in Lancaster, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it had previously been listed for about 6 months, right? And she's a rock star agent. She kills
Yeah.
it, dude. But the people wanted about $500,000 for it, right? And in Lancaster,
That's a lot.
that's up there. And, it was a failed listing and everything. She came in and she basically already made it look brand new.
Yeah.
But the cherry on top in what she presented today was the virtual staging, right?
Yeah.
It really it's not meant to deceive people. It's meant to bring people in and them actually be able to like visualize what the space could be, the potential that it has, right? So that played a huge part in it. And she got it under contract in like a week. I think she said she just closed on it
Really?
like last week or today. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it really is becoming the standard, it seems like, in that way. Like,
Absolutely.
if you're not doing it, then you're probably leaving money on the table and losing money from the time it's sitting on. And especially, as you know, in the Kentucky market, for sure. I mean, it's a lot of markets, but how shortage of housing there is, there's plenty of people out there to buying houses right now, even in this current economy and recession and so forth. But and you definitely see the trend of more and more people moving outside into different kind of local, smaller markets and kind of driving in or something like that. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of cool to see that in that sense. Any other things as far from like stories or whatnot as far as that goes at all?
So recently too, for Chris Sheets, he had 4405 Todd Boulevard. This house was just a huge hit as it was,
Yeah.
has a pool, already
Okay.
low inventory here in Kentucky, and then
Right.
it has a pool too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But dude, it broke the record for how many people actually had saw it and interacted with the virtual tour. I could see all those metrics.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, it was around 700 something people saw it, and around 500 or 600 people had actually clicked on it and spent time on it.
Really?
And not only does that help them be able to kind of explore the property, it keeps them interested longer,
Sure.
right? That's why like SEO and all that kind of likes video.
Yeah.
Because it keeps people's attention longer than photos.
Yeah.
But man, that house didn't even last like 2 or 3 days.
And so
before
where are
it had
those
offers.
where are they people where are they viewing that typically?
On the MLS or
On the MLS
Zillow, yeah.
or Zillow, even the video stuff and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could post. I'm not too sure if you could post videos on Zillow, but I
Yeah.
know on like Flex MLS you
Yeah.
can post a video,
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you can kind of, so that they can kind of find it, or realtors can kind of send them to that. And
Absolutely.
So forth.
Yeah.
Is YouTube being utilized very much in that space at all,
So not
or some
not
of the
too
more
much that I've
cinematic
seen.
ones?
Yeah, so like that's what I've started to post my cinematic videos on YouTube.
Sure.
And it's honestly a really good idea.
Yeah.
Omnipresence is the name of the game, right? You
Right.
want to be everywhere. You want
Yeah.
to click on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and see, want people to see it.
Yeah.
Get maximum exposure.
I mean, that's why season 2 here we're going to video. I mean, I'm already doing audio, so I might as well just add it.
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
can be everywhere. People want to experience things in different, as well as when it comes to real estate, being able to kind of experience the property in different ways. Whether it's here's a video walkthrough, here's pictures, here's me actually going through the property, digital staging, and all that kind of stuff. So very cool. And I think me and you are both kind of talked off air as well as like the importance of just especially for real estate realtors, so forth right now, as far as having a kind of a brand or your image out there, if that's the case, the wholesalers or whoever it is, you might not have something directly come from it type of scenario. Like for the podcast example, it's not like I have necessarily things directly come from a podcast episode or something like that specifically, but it's just the fact that people it's been awesome to kind of get to really cultivate a lot of cool relationships and people that just from knowing that it's there or seeing bits and pieces of clips or audio things out there before. And so I'm sure that's you are helping out with realtors and other people like that with that side of things too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you hit the nail on the head there. Like what you would want people to kind of have a result with, that's like direct response marketing, right?
Yeah.
That's you like basically creating an ad or, having like major call to actions or like promoting certain deals and stuff. And there's a difference between that and branding, right?
Sure.
Branding, which is what I'm like focusing in on with some of the realtors that I'm working with right now. It's more about like creating that goodwill, right? Like actually providing value to people, being really honest with yourself when you're making this content. Are people going to be able to take something away from this and use this?
Yeah.
Are people going to learn from this, or is this going to motivate people?
Yeah.
That's the best content that performs right there.
Educational, things they're giving back.
Absolutely. And like Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the greats, right? Like he basically created like the talking head reel, essentially.
Right.
And he has a saying, don't quote me on it exactly, but like branding and direct response marketing, it's about like the time on the ROI, right? Like how much time it actually takes to actually get an ROI. On branding is much longer, obviously, because you're not like trying to necessarily sell people on something right there.
Yeah.
But it's bigger because eventually, you gain that reputation, you provide that value to people, reciprocity. People think of you when, when
Grant Cardone's a little bit similar where he wants to provide education,
Absolutely.
but it's like, hey, if you want to, and same with Alex is, Hormozy, for those that don't know, he's more of a guy the acquisitions.com. So they're buying businesses and so forth, that are up for sale or want to be acquired type of thing, or take it to the next level. But yeah, and he just uses the platform as a way to kind of make his name more known so that those who do find him that way that want to do that can. But obviously, that's for the 1% kind of a scenario. But the ROI on that gaining of that 1% is so much higher than trying to kind of market yourself directly like, let me buy your company, let me buy your company, let me buy your company. Whereas really people then are approaching you in that sense, more so than you having to kind of try to approach them and acquire them as a client or so forth.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like, dude, you could binge his page, right?
Yeah.
And it just provides so much value. There's so much that I've taken away from him and tried to apply it to what I do, right?
Yeah.
Like his whole, you ever read $100 Million Offer?
No, I haven't. It's on my list for sure. Well, I've got a lot of books on my list, but
same.
I'll get around. I've got 3 kids, and so that takes up a lot of my time as well. But that is on my list, and people have been talking about that. Yeah, $100 million offer, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about creating like a grand slam offer. Like his whole thing is like, you should create an offer that's so good that people feel stupid for saying, I don't want to go forward with that. So he got his big start off like gym launch.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and one of the things he talks about is like a guarantee, right? Like most businesses should have a guarantee. And his was like all focused around how much money he's going to make you, right?
Yeah.
So the end product is focused around his performance as well. So it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's, if you own a gym and you want it to increase revenue and stuff, it's almost like a no-brainer to go with like his company on stuff like that.
Yeah.
How to implement that into your business.
How do you kind of stay current and innovative in photography, videography, the techniques, the marketing that you're doing and so forth these days?
Yeah, so I am in a real estate photographer group that's like one of the biggest in the country.
Okay.
It's got like 4,000 something members.
Wow.
Honestly, probably more than that, but that's just what's in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And in that too, we kind of have like a little round table. So I meet with about 10 to 12 other real estate photographers based around the country, and you know, been able to build like good relationships there. And now it's like, you know, a friendship.
Yeah.
Build friendships with it all. And they're great people and they're hustlers. And there's people that are in this group that are doing like, have just like a crazy business, right? I've been doing this a couple years.
Yeah.
And are just so busy, like they almost have to turn down work. Then there's people that are just getting started. And then there's people that are just like me that are kind of like in the midst of starting, but not too deep into it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get together one time a week and we just go over, you know, we just kind of like talk about the business and how we can improve what others are doing.
Yeah.
And within these groups too, trends and like new ideas are going left and right, new, like products and services that we could provide to people.
Yeah.
Like the newest one that I saw was, drone tour, like virtual drone tour. That's like,
Well, so you kind of led me into my next question, honestly, as far as what the future kind of real estate when it comes to marketing, photography, videography, where that's going. So you're saying like where they would start flying a drone through the house kind of a scenario or whatnot? Okay, yeah. So talking about some of the things that were probably coming down the pipeline then in that sense.
for sure. So that's one of them. You know what FPV drones are?
No.
First person point of view. So like you literally have a VR headset on.
Yeah.
And it's these crazy videos that you see of people like flying in between buildings and flipping around like skyscrapers, stuff like that. But yeah, that's like one that's huge right now. It's like all over the country that people are flying these like tiny little drones with these headsets on through the house. And it's kind of like a sped up like walkthrough, similar to what I do now with like a social media walkthrough video where it's just speed ramp throughout a house, shows the layout and everything.
Yeah. Draws their attention for a much shorter period of time, but packs in as much as it can in that period of time.
Absolutely. And, you know, it gives the agents something to kind of brag about too, that like, you know, we're using new innovative ways to market properties.
Yeah, I'm sure the agents are always trying to figure out how to kind of, you know, one up each other as far as brand or new techniques or other stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. At the end of the day, the house is the house, but you know, again, for a realtor, it's all about brand and how you market that, and or for staging, like I said, from us, you know, if I'm flipping a property or something like that, we're currently flipping our second property right now, type of thing, and
That's
putting
awesome.
that best foot forward and so forth. At the end of the day, that's cool. Being from Kentucky and around Kentucky, what's some of your favorite things about Kentucky? Now as an adult, Keeneland. Yeah,
Yeah, Keeneland.
I got a lot of people that say, you know, out of state, they're like, oh, in Churchill Downs. And I'm always like, it's fine.
Yeah, not as good
No
as the time
offense
as
to anybody
Keeneland, right?
in, you know, Louisville and so forth, but
Yeah.
Keeneland's definitely a special place, and I think very unique in that sense as far as a horse track, more unique than anything else in the country.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe it or not, I had not even been until like later on in college. Like, it was
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just not something I ever did, even though I lived in just a few miles, you know, not that far away from it. In that sense. What's some of your favorite local restaurant to visit, though?
So like Carson's for sure is probably my number one. Dude, I love
so many people
Carson's.
say Carson's. We need another one. In
Oh
town.
yeah,
Goodness.
absolutely. Like Malone's, you know, that's like a go-to too. I'm trying to think. Like fast food that is just like authentic, like to the bone, man, is Poppy's Rapido.
Yeah.
You ever had that?
Yeah. I've not been to the fast one. Like,
Oh, okay. You've been
I've
like
been
the
to more
sit
like
down.
the sit down one. I've
Yeah.
not, but I'm assuming it's the same type of food.
Oh yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
See,
But
I haven't been to the sit down one.
Yeah.
But I've been to the fast one.
Yeah.
Like anytime, like I'm in it's it's right there on South Broadway,
Right.
next to like where I live and stuff. So I'm like, okay, anytime I'm coming home, I got to hit that.
That's awesome. Well, dude, anything else to kind of, before we wrap up, to kind of point out? Where can we find you as far as online on social media? So you might want to contact you to kind of help out with their flip or their listing or whatnot. How do they do so?
Yeah, so Bluegrass Real Estate Media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on all those places, YouTube.
Yep.
That's my website too, www.bluegrassrealestatemedia.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty self-explanatory, right? But yeah, give me a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. That's really how I've really been able to grow my business is just through Instagram right now. Yeah. It's all kind of been organic through there, been reaching out on there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, sweet stuff, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
you coming on today and having
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
We'll check everybody else out on another episode next week of the Keys to Commonwealth podcast.